Welcome to the Adventures of Adam. I'm Adam. Let's adventure. What's up, guys? Today we're going to take a look at topics discussed in the last episode of the Fateless podcast, and I'm going to talk about what I believe could be contributing to the problems they're having and offer what I believe to be solutions. So let's get into it. So the first question they pose is, why are players banking keys instead of taking the risk? And it could just be that a lot of times when people build teams for these types of games, they optimize the team to run quickly and just get it done, like scrape by with the bare minimum, try to get it done as fast as possible. So if that's the style of team that they've built, and then a pop-up comes up and says, hey, has a chance to ruin your run, they're probably not going to want to take the risk and lose the rewards. Another reason they might not be taking the risk is because they don't feel like the risk is worth the rewards. Like, yes, you get twice as much of the completion rewards at the end if you complete the rift, plus the rift rewards. But maybe that's not enough. Like, I don't know. Maybe if you want to encourage players to take the risk and engage with the rift at the time that it pops up, maybe they need to be more enticing than just double the dungeon rewards. Maybe you give them double the rift rewards. Whereas if they bank the key, they only get ×1. That could be a potential solution and probably a big motivator. I know me personally, coming from other games, I know that skill up materials are a premium resource and they're very hard to obtain. So if I know that I can double that reward for doing the rifts right then and there, it might actually be worth it to build my team maybe less optimally for speed and more optimally for surviving extra waves and enemies. And then that would encourage me to engage with the rifts then and there, rather than bank them. The next topic they discuss is risk versus reward and practice. Do you feel like the risk is worth the reward? And again, if my team is built to just run the dungeon as quickly, as fast, and efficiently as possible, I might not be in a position where I'm ready to take that reward because I know I'm going to fail. But if the reward was worth it, I would definitely build my team with that in mind, even though there's only a 15% chance for these to pop up. Knowing that if I take the risk then and there, I'll get double the rift rewards, then I'll definitely, for me, it's worth it to make my team a little bit slower for the sake of getting double skill up materials. To me, that sounds great. So the next topic they discuss is, should the rift boss change over time? And long term, I think yes, but short term for the early game, I say no. Because it's very difficult to build a team specifically to overcome this very specific challenge of beat the regular dungeon boss and also beat the rift boss. So how do you do that in a way that's friendly for new players and also friendly for players who've been playing for a long time so they don't get bored? So one idea that I had would be only the highest level of the dungeon. Let's say stage 15 is the highest level. Only stage 15 has a rotating boss. So when you're in progression for the first time, you're a brand new player, you could look up guides how to beat the stage 5 rift boss, like stuff like that. So the first levels of the rift perhaps make them a bit easier. For the rare rifts, maybe make it so it's a rare boss. And then for the epic rifts, maybe make it the epic rifts have an epic boss who's just a little bit harder. And then when you get to the legendary rifts, have those be a legendary boss. And then at the highest stage of that dungeon, I'm assuming it's 15 for the time, have the stage 15 rift boss be the boss that rotates, so that endgame players have a variety, but you're not punishing early game and new players. That's my solution. The next question they pose was posed by Odd One, regarding whether or not you should get double rewards if you use the key right then and there. And I think that's a great idea. It's a great solution, and it's a great way to encourage players to engage with them when they pop up. So you're only getting double the rewards if you do it right then and there. And then I think it would also be good if you doubled the rift rewards. That would really encourage people to engage with them. Otherwise, like, it's one dungeon run worth of loot. Like, who cares? But if you're going to tell me I'm going to double the rift rewards, which is a 15% chance to proc, and it's this extremely high value resource that I use to skill up my heroes, I'm definitely taking that reward. So I really like the idea that Odd One proposed here, where you only get double rewards if you engage with the rift when it pops up. And I also like the idea, I think it would be more encouraging for players to engage with it when it pops up if the rift rewards were doubled too. So great idea, Odd One. I like the way you're thinking. I think we just need to take it a little bit further. So the next quandary they postulate on, I guess, is should keys exist at all? I think they should. I think players who are maybe not particularly confident in their ability to complete the rift, they shouldn't be punished. I think this is the type of decision that I think a lot of people will draw conclusions upon whether your game is free to play friendly or not. And I know you guys have said for a long time anything that a spender could do, you want free to play players to be able to do as well. And I think a big part of that is having the capacity to farm skill ups for your heroes. And if a player is not confident in their ability to complete a rift and a dungeon at the same time, then I do think you should have keys so that when a rift pops while they're farming their dungeon gear, they have a chance to go back. And if they're not confident in being able to fight the dungeon that they're currently farming, they can go to a dungeon where they are a little bit more confident and maybe go down a couple levels to try to use those rift keys and at least get some skill ups. So I do like the idea of keys. And I think it's going to be very important for making sure that your game is approachable from a wide variety of players. Now here, Raven Pyros actually brings up a really good point when they're discussing the ways to reduce the risk of failure. So let's say hypothetically, and this is something actually I'm glad he brought up because it's something that I had thought about in the past. When you're building a team to fight a dungeon and you fail, you can go back to your hero page, you can make adjustments, you can level up gear, you can do things to refine your team to make it stronger, and then go right back in and try it again. If a rift pops up spontaneously and you feel confident and you think you can do it, and you try and you fail, you can't just go back to the hero screen, adjust your heroes, rank them up, increase their power, make adjustments to the team, swap heroes in and out, and then try the rift again, because the rifts only appear with a 15% chance. So you have to wait until the next rift pops up before you can try and see if the adjustments you made work or not. That's a really unfortunate way for it to be designed. And this kind of goes back into, should we be able to bank keys? And I say the answer is yes, for this reason specifically. When I'm trying to build a team that can beat the dungeon and the rift, I want to be able to test it again and again and again to make sure it's consistent. And the only way to do that is if I can attempt to fight the rift again and again and again. So it would be cool if we could bank the keys and then have a similar method to what you're doing for progression, where if you haven't yet beaten the stage, it doesn't cost you energy to attempt it. Similarly, if I'm trying to fight the dungeon plus the rift, it would be cool if I didn't lose my key so I can continue making adjustments to my team to get to a point where I can overcome that content. For me, I'm all about tinkering and iteration. That's how I progress in these games. That's how I succeed in these games. I'm not a math guy. I'm not a numbers guy. I can't just plug a bunch of stuff into a spreadsheet and be like, aha, I have the secret sauce. No, I'm a very tactile learner. I learn by doing and tinkering and making adjustments, watching my runs like a hawk, looking for, okay, well, if I didn't crit there, or whatever the reason may be that causes a failure, I watch for why I'm failing and then think of ways to improve upon my team so that I can succeed in the future. To me, that is invaluably important to have that ability. So I do think if you want to encourage people to participate in this content and you're looking to reduce the risk of failure or make it less punishing, that is a way you could do it. Make it so if we have keys banked, we can try to farm it and build our team up for it without the risk of losing keys if we fail. At least until, we've done it a few times. So however you guys want to balance that, you can. That's just my idea, throwing it out there. As I'm watching through this again, Odd One brings up a good point talking about whether you lose energy for failure or not. And, they talk about the philosophy of, if you're trying to farm and you fail, then you lose. But if you have not yet beat the level and you fail, you do not lose the energy. Odd One talks about, well, what if I want to build a new team and I don't know if that team works and it feels bad, blah, 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 blah. It would be really cool if there was a button that you can toggle where you click this button and you're in like practice mode, where it doesn't cost you energy. And if you succeed, you don't gain rewards. That would be amazing. So and that would actually kind of help us with the last subject of the risk versus reward and losing keys and failing and not getting the resources you're after, et cetera, et cetera. I just think having like a practice mode where it literally just click a button and then it doesn't cost you energy, and if you succeed, you don't get rewards. I think that's the most elegant solution that could be implemented at some point in the future. I know it wouldn't make it into beta, but I think that's something to consider, and I think the players would really enjoy something like that. Now, the question that they've posed to the players is, how would we feel if rifts were separated from the dungeon and they were just their own game mode, completely separate from, now you don't have to beat the rift and the dungeon because you have the dungeon over here and you have rifts over here. I personally would not mind. Like, legitimately, I think that's fine. I think there's a lot of casual players would probably prefer that. So you farm the dungeons, and then a rift key is just has a 15% chance to drop from the dungeon with the rewards when you complete it. Boom, I got a rift key. And then when you're ready to farm the rifts, you go over to the rift area and you farm your rifts, and you fight the rifts to farm your skill ups. I think that's a perfectly reasonable solution. It might not be as exciting as the one you guys currently have with the risk and reward. I think there could be a way where both things are true, where when you're fighting the dungeon, if a rift appears and you attack it and you beat it, you get double the dungeon rewards and double the rift rewards. That would be so exciting. Like, super, like, I'm down for that. Sign me up. But then if I'm not feeling confident enough to beat the dungeon and the rift, I just bank a rift key. And then when I want to use that rift key in the future, I could just go to the rift and farm it then and there. So you could do it both ways. Like, you could still have the rifts randomly appear and have it be something that we have the opportunity to engage with if we choose to. But for the more casual players or the more risk adverse players, they could have an easier time to farm these materials by just fighting the rifts in a standalone game mode. I don't see any reason why you couldn't do it both ways. And again, they're talking about how often should rift bosses rotate, and I kind of already covered this in the beginning, but I think only the final boss, it should rotate. So early game progression, you always know who you're going to fight when you make a new account and you're working your way up to the top, and then at the top, level 15 or whatever the highest level is, have that boss be the one that rotates. I think that's just the best solution, in my opinion. Here, Riff and Powers brings up an interesting point regarding whether or not players should be able to bank keys, or if they do have a limit on it. I'm not opposed to there being a limit as long as the limit was generous, like enough that it doesn't feel punishing, but not so high that people could just bank them indefinitely. But he's also raising this on the assumption that Rift Boss rotates every 3 months or something like that. So I think if there wasn't a low level rotating, like if only the final boss rotated, I don't think banking keys would be an issue. I think end game players who have legendaries, who want to book their legendaries, they're going to be incentivized to find a way to overcome this content, and they will be highly motivated to do so. I don't think someone's going to say, oh, I'll just wait 3 months before I book this new legendary I just pulled. No, I just pulled this legendary. They look awesome. I can't wait to build them. Let's go kick this Rift Boss ass. I think that's just what the majority of players are going to want to do. I think there's a good level of incentive to chase those skill ups. But yeah, again, if you only have it so the final boss rotates, it's not really that big of a deal. Players will know this is the boss they have to fight. They can prepare to fight it, and they don't have to worry about it changing by the time they finally get a team together that can actually overcome that content. So yeah, I think with the method of only the final boss rotates, like the highest level boss rotates, solves a lot of these same issues at the same time. Those are just my thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think, and more importantly, I'm sure the Fateless team would love to hear what you think. They have proven that time and time again they are willing to listen to our feedback and make changes in the game. So if you have strong opinions or great ideas, make sure you share them with the Fateless team, or leave them in the comments below, and if I like them too, I'll share them with the Fateless team. If you're not on Discord and don't have proper avenues to do all that, I'll handle it for you. Don't worry, I got you. But anyway, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully, I will see you all in another video soon. But until next time, everyone, take care.